We're here for fun. We're here for horror. We are here for Eli Roth, today's guest of honor. Let's bring him in.
Happy Sunday. Were any of you monsters at Haunt Manor that fucked me up last night? That's what I would like to know, because I know a few people were like, I got to work tonight at Haunt Manor. I went last night. It was pretty incredible. So I don't know if there's any haunters here. But hi, nice to see everyone.
There you go. And Eli knows a good haunt, doesn't he?
I do, yeah. Did anyone make it to the one in Vegas? The Goratorium? All right, one there, yeah. That was fun. It was the greatest waste of money ever. I've never gone through so much money. So if it was, I tried to do a year-round haunted house. It was beautiful. They did such a great job. But the real estate, the place, they told us, they're like, oh, you're going to get 100,000 people a day walking by it. And we're like, okay. And then they were like, actually, it's more like 9,000 people. We're like, well, probably wouldn't have picked that spot. But I was glad I did it. Anyways, it's great to be here. I've had such a fun time. Everyone's so nice. Everyone's polite. Like when we were shooting the riot scene in Hamilton, you know, everyone was like, no one got hurt because they were like killing each other. You're like, cut. And they're like, I'm sorry, you okay? It's like, I always wanted to make Canadian Thanksgiving where the killer just like stabs people and goes, sorry. So
please do.
I love it. You guys
that would be amazing.
Fucking polite. Americans don't know how to handle it. They're like, God, everyone's really friendly and they smile and ask how you are. If they don't want to. So it's nice. I love being here. Anyways, thank you. Made me feel very well.
Great. Well, getting back to the subject of wasting money. Let's talk about the beginning of your filmmaking career, which is to say you went to film school at NYU, but you also had been shooting shorts since you were a little kid with your brothers. And which of those two was the better education in filmmaking?
Oh, it's a great question. You know, I think the best education you get is working on set. So the answer is neither. But truly, because when you're a kid, you have an idea of what it is. It's like you and your friends and a camera. And it's great to do it because that's where you figure stuff out. You like try things, you can show it to a bunch of people and they're like, oh, that sucked. Or this, you know, there's just a different kind of level of experience, but it's really fun. You're just having a good time. Then when you go to film school, you sort of deal with what happens when an actor doesn't show up, or when your boom guy oversleeps, or when someone shoots out of focus. Like there's just it's really about like, I have my vision, this is it, and everything gets fucked up. Because directing isn't about like having your shots. It's really being like a jazz musician or an improviser, where it's how can you pull it off when everything fucking goes wrong? Because it's going to, and it's all stuff that is completely beyond your comprehension. Stuff you're just like, but I didn't even know that was, like a bridge closes. There's an accident on the bridge, and like half your crew can't make it because they're stuck in that traffic jam. You're just like the weather coming in, like stuff you completely can't prepare for. Or on Cabin Fever when you're shipping the props to North Carolina and they freeze in transit and you're doing the live stream. It's like, all right, I guess we're just going to just reveal it and use sound to cover it up. So it really is about like how good you are at pulling it off when everything goes wrong. Now, if you have endless money, you can do that. They can shoot it over and over and over, and they do. But in general, when you're making horror movies, it's low budget. So it's how good are you at pulling it off when you have no money and when everything screws up and when, you know, your actors, you know, just disappear, which happens. Not on this one, thankfully, but weird stuff happens. So it's a combination of all three. Like, I think that shooting as a kid gives you the love of it and the joy of it, and it, you know, kind of practice ideas and stuff. You know, I crashed their panel yesterday, and I knew they were going to fucking come back at me someday. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause. Jalen Thomas Brooks. It's like Gabriel Davenport. That might be Jenna Warren, Karen Cleash, Alex Armbruster, and Jeff Teravainen. Wow, this is like The Strangers meets us. This is very creepy. Yeah, I don't know, not planned. So yeah, I guess they're here now as well. We got John Carver lives. See if you can guess who's who. So yes, as I was saying, you have to improvise when everything you plan completely goes fucking awry. Like now.
Now, you cut your teeth on a variety of sets before you were making your own films proper. Do you have any anecdotes of shitstorms you've weathered?
Well, sure. I mean, you have great experiences and bad experiences. Like I worked on Private Parts, the Howard Stern movie, and I would sit outside his door at night, and that's when I was working on the Cabin Fever script. But I remember I was working on Central Park West, and like I had to get Raquel Welch apple juice. And they were like, she wouldn't shoot until she had apple juice. And I love Raquel Welch, so I was like more than happy to do it. And there was like in your earphone, they're like, get that fucking apple juice, get the fucking apple juice. I'm like, I'm getting it. And I ran down and I just, oh my God, I remember running back. And then it wasn't sugar free, so she didn't want to drink it. I was like, I had to run back and get sugar free apple juice. It was hilarious. But that to me is like, I'm laughing. But I also remember, we were filming by Tompkins Square Park in New York City. Are they done? Bye, guys. Bye, John Carver. Ladies and gentlemen, well done. I know. They get bored when I'm not talking about them. When it's not so, have you noticed that? When it's like, we didn't hear about Eli. So for a classic example, I go to film school, I work on sets, and I'm film literate, but I'm also like a good person you could throw into a crowd to handle it. Like if there are 200 people, you have to get them quiet. I could do that without like screaming at people. I could be nice and funny and charming. So I remember there were like homeless people like fighting. There was like a riot going on in Tompkins Square Park, which now is very nice, but at the time in the 90s was like a rough. That's where the homeless guy someone chopped up their boyfriend and fed him to the homeless. Like and it was people shooting up. It was that kind of a park. So we're in this like third floor and they can't shoot because of the sound. So they're like, Eli, you need to go out there and tell everyone to be quiet. And you're like a PA working for $90 a day. It's 3:00 in the morning. It's 0 degrees outside, the dead of winter. I was like, I got it. So I go by craft service and catering. I go, give me a tray full of soup. And I went out with 30 soups. And there's fucking people that want to kill each other. There's these homeless guys, drug addicts are like really fucking screaming. And I walk out like nice little Jewish boy, like, excuse me. And I walk out and I go, hey, I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm so sorry to bother you guys. They're like, what the fuck? And I'm like, it's so weird. They're just disarmed. Like, what? And I go, we're filming a TV show up there and we have all this extra food and we don't want to throw it out. Would anyone like some? And everyone's like, oh, thank you, sure. And they had like, everyone grabbed a soup and got quiet. And they're like, do you need us to be quiet? I was like, only when we're rolling. Do you guys mind? They're like, no. We're cool. And I was like, on the walkie, I was like, okay, roll camera. And they're like, cut, thanks. And I was like, what do you guys shoot? And it was like over. Food solves everything. I was in my student film, something I learned from my student film, where I was filming a scene where it's on YouTube, it's called Restaurant Dogs. It was the original Tarantino ripoff. It was Ronald McDonald and their gang on a killing spree, and they're like, Mayor McCheese is doing a Nazi rally, and I'm decapitating him and squirting cheese. It's the same bullshit as Thanksgiving. It's literally the same. I'm like, oh, just doing the same shit over. We're all just making the same movie over and over, no matter what we do. So Mayor McCheese is getting decapitated, and out of nowhere, a freak snowstorm rolls in. So we're like shooting and it's 60 degrees and now it's like blinding snow. So we run into these bathrooms next to the Met in this place called the Ancient Playground. And again, there are 3 crack addicts with like no pants, like smoking crack on the toilets. And there was some girl had been watching us after school. And she's like, I live across the street, which is 95th Street and 5th Avenue. So like this girl's obviously loaded. And she's like, my mom is a charge count at Gristedes, which was a supermarket. We're like, feed us. So she goes with the sound guy across the street to the supermarket and comes back with tons of food. And we just give it. We were like having this feast. But these guys were like high on crack. And they're like, it's fucking Grimace. Like Ronald McDonald walks in and Grimace and Mayor McCheese. And again, we gave them food. And they were like, do you need us to watch your equipment? Or is that cool if we like... we're like, yeah, sure. It's the weirdest. You're having this like feast. So dealing with people on a same thing where I was like, again, on a TV show, Meet Joe Black or something. And there was like a guy with a big fucking saw cutting up Fifth Avenue. And they're like, Eli? I'm like, no problem. And I come over there and they're like, these like big New York City construction guys. Like, what the fuck? I'm like, I'm so sorry. they bought too much ice cream. Do you guys want some? We have all this candy and ice cream and soda. I don't know what to do with it. It's a June day. It's hot as fuck. And they're like, we'll take it. And they're like, yeah. They're like, are we making noise? I go, no, don't worry. Like, we can stop. We can take a break. I'm like, sure. Like, it's just like all of these things that, like, being human, having like soup and ice cream, like, it's just that stuff you'd never think that's what's going to solve your problem. And 9 out of 10 times, just like taking a break and feeding people and letting you know, like, I recognize you as a human being. I know you're cold. I know you're hungry. Is it cool? Can we just get, instead of being like, shut the fuck up, we rented this place, we're making, you can't have that attitude, because immediately people are like, fuck you. Because as soon as there's a movie camera, you're Hollywood. Whether you're doing it for no money, whether it's a low budget movie, it doesn't matter. You'll find when you're making a movie, you're like, oh man, I mortgaged my grandmother's house, she's gonna be bankrupt and this, and I got a professional crew and blah, blah, blah. As soon as that camera's there, everyone's like, well, fuck you, you're Hollywood. I see that. It's like there's too much conditioning of movie stars in private jets, so they don't think of you as like just as poor as they are, but I have a you can't like plead poverty once you have a camera. So little things like always having extra food around and being in the neighborhood and people that are making too much noise. I swear to God, if you just go over there with like a bag of donuts and ice cream, they're just more than happy to be like, oh, we'll be quiet. No, we want to help you. We want to help you because you've treated them in a humane way. So it's really that. That's like one of the things that, these are things that I learned from film school, from kind of shooting on my own. But, you're going to make a movie low budget. You got to find other ways to, make people feel good when they do it.
Well, I hope we're all taking notes, guys. Don't bother with film school. Food solves everything. Sugar-free apple juice, if it
I wouldn't say don't. Film school is great. I love film school. I mean, film school is a really, it's not for everyone. I mean, it's also what you make of it. Look, I interned while I was at school, but film school is a great way to like fuck up in a way that doesn't count against your career. I loved it because it's like you can make terrible movies, you can make bad movies, and you can get, and the worst that's going to happen is your teacher's going to, rip you to pieces. Like no one cares what your grades are in film school, but you learn by showing to like the worst thing you want, the worst reaction for me is like, it's like someone just like, oh fuck, are they checking their phone, or like, that's like the worst sound. When people are gasping or people are getting up and leaving, you don't want like boredom and disinterest. So you learn that. You'll show your cut to your students and they're like, or they don't laugh, and you're like, what happened? And they're like, well, that was boring. It's like, but that shot was so good. And they're like, yeah, but we got it. We're already 2 steps ahead. So you need to like, it's like when you make a movie and you show it to a test audience, you think it's so good. Like a classic example in Thanksgiving, when I was shooting it, I was like, we were doing the roasting scene, and I had these beautiful, Steve Newburn had made these gorgeous burns for me, and we're doing this makeup on Karen, and she's getting burned, and someone from the studio was like, hey man, I think this is too much. I'm like, what do you think? That's my middle name. What do you think? I was like, dude, trust me, you don't understand the horror fans. They love the gore. We're going for it. And they're like, I don't know, man. I think this is too much. I'm like, that's a good sign. If you're uncomfortable when we're filming it, that means we're on the right track. And so we filmed it and we showed it to an audience. And after, when the turkey pops, I thought people were going to go, yeah. And the audience was dead silent. And I was like, whoa. And I had fucking punched him too hard. I'd pummeled everyone. And you'd think that the more, the gore the merrier, the more gore, everyone's like, gore, 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 gore. But it is like, I started making pizza. My wife's Italian, so we got a brick oven pizza. And the first thing I learned, if you put too much mozzarella on, there's water comes up and it goes into the crust, and then you try to take the thing out and the whole crust collapses and you're just left with this messy calzone. You need like just the right balance of like olive oil, pizza, bread, and then you get it perfect. And you're like, God, there's never enough cheese on the pizza. I wanted lots of cheese. Well, you put too much cheese in the pizza, it's going to overwater it, and the whole thing tastes like shit. So I'd put too much cheese in the pizza. I was like, people stopped enjoying it. They're like, we got it. Now it's just cruel, which I was like laughing. I thought it would be the best reaction ever. Well, I tried it again where we took some of the shots of her sizzling. It turned into like some horrible cruelty torture, which I think would be hilarious, but it was too much. I had set up the wrong movie. Like, that movie is Hostel. Like, I'd set up the first dumpster kill is so fun, and then I have the killer feed the cat, and I was like, it's like, that's the fun, is then Evan gets his head smashed, and I want people to go, oh, this is awful. But the Kathleen one was like, it was taking away from the Evan one. The Evan should be the moment where you're like, oh, this isn't fun anymore. But Kathleen should still be fun. So I pulled it back, and it's the same level of gore, just less of it, and everyone applauded. So it's all these things. Like, film school, you learn technique, you learn budgeting, you learn scheduling, but you also kind of learn how to deal with dicks, with kids that are like, shoot your film out of focus on purpose, or, are arrogant. Like, it's just sort of learning the politics of like what it's like to be in a crew and to be the sound guy and to, you just get experiences, and yeah, it's expensive, but it's fun as fuck. And it's also the first time, film school is the first time I was like, oh, these are my people. These are people that have watched like Zapped and Porky's and Fast Times and, Evil Dead. And that's where I met this kid, Noah Mitchell, who's like, oh, you got to watch Peter Jackson. And he gave me one videotape that had like Brain Dead, Meet the Feebles, like Dead Alive. It was Bad Taste, Meet the Feebles, Dead Alive, all on one VHS tape, and that's a VHS tape that changed my life. So you're meeting people that are like your species, and now you can do that on social media. Now you can go to a con and do that. But back then, film school. So I think it's just a great way to. It's not for everyone. Also, I had a lot of. I mean, I'm like immature now. My God, when I was 18, it was like, I was still like a very much a kid from the suburbs. So being thrown into New York City and having those 4 years to kind of like grow up and learn to be an adult and learn to work around, on professional sets, I definitely needed that. So it's not for everybody, but for me, I found it incredibly valuable. But I balanced it with working from the time I was 18. The first week I was on set, I was like, I'll get coffee. Like, what do you need? I just want to be on a movie set. And I graduated with a job working for producer Fred Zolo, who I met Colleen Camp when I was working there. And Colleen, we did Knock Knock together, and she's become a really dear friend. So just the people that you meet, like, if you really are serious about it, it's a good litmus test to see how bad you want to do it. So everybody wants to be a director, but by year 2 or 3, someone's like, I kind of don't want to deal with that. I like being an editor. Or, cinematographer is more my thing. Fuck, I love sound designer. Kind of want to be a composer. Maybe I'll be focused on producing. Maybe I'll be a screenwriter. Like, film school is a good way to try every single job, as is interning, work for a casting office, work on set. You might hate being on set. Maybe you want to be in the production office. Maybe you want to be in post-production. Maybe you want to be a post-production PA. Maybe you want to be a casting assistant. Maybe you'd rather work for an agency, rather being a producer and develop stuff. So you don't know it. Your idea, it's just an idea of what directing is before you do it. But then you get that experience. You're like, oh, fuck, is this what it's really like? It's like, yeah, it's just arguing with people all day. You're incredibly lonely. You have to go, no, do it like that. Fuck, I told them. I thought these were like, what? Why don't they listen to you? It's like, no, this is human. And then after a while, you're like, oh, no, it's just human nature. People forget stuff. People misinterpret things. They want to add their own spin. They want to add their. So it's like harnessing the best of people, getting them to add their creative thing, but not to the point where it's going to take away from what you want to do.
Well, I'm really glad that you brought up Hostel with regard to, pushing the envelope in terms of maybe too much cheese, maybe a little extra cheese, maybe, making people uncomfortable. Because that film, I really love that film. I'm sure we've got some Hostel fans in the house. And yet that film gets labeled with torture porn and starts this kind of pearl-clutching movement where, are we enjoying gore too much? And then you look at what's the #1 movie out right now, guys? Terrifier 3. So can you speak to kind of the trajectory of your filmography with regard to public response and gore?
Sure. I mean, look, you don't do what I do to not push people's buttons. I can't be like, what? They were offended? How? Like, that's pearl-clutching for me. Like, you're going to, I'm burning her face and cutting the eye. I mean, people were like, and on Cabin Fever, I actually got positive reviews because critics were like, oh, this is fun and nuts. And it was kind of like he made it for $1 million and like, it's sort of, But then with Hostel, people were like, what the fuck is this? Like, then it became the #1 movie, and it became the topic of conversation. Like, but I was at the film festival in Sitges, and I saw Audition and Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, and I was like, oh, this is where Japan, South Korea, they're kicking our ass. This is where American horror needs to be. And it's interesting because I saw Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, and I really was motivated to write Hostel. And then the creator of Squid Game watched Hostel 1 and 2 when he was writing Squid Game. So there's similarities to that. So it all comes full circle. So now it's like you can see the cultures influencing each other. But that, at the time, was so transgressive. And I remember I talked to Quentin. I was like, because I turned down a Warner Brothers movie that I just didn't believe in the script. And I went to his house, and he was super supportive. He was the fucking best. And I was like, he's like, what's the matter? I'm like, I was kind of running out of money. And I was like, I just turned down the more money than I've ever seen in my lifetime because I just couldn't stomach the thought of waking up and doing it every day because I just didn't believe in it. But they offered the job to me, and I said no, and it's a fucking studio movie. And he's like, well, what other ideas do you have? And I told him the idea for Hostel, and he's like, that's the scariest idea I've heard in 10 years. That's fucking terrible. You've got to do it. And I go, well, what if it's too sick? He goes, don't think about opening weekend. Think about that weekend 15 years from now if kids are still watching it at sleepover. That's the only weekend that matters. He goes, Reservoir Dogs didn't make a dime. 15 years later, it's a classic. Pulp Fiction, runaway hit after the Oscar nominations. Jackie Brown, somewhere in the middle. He goes, you can't predict it. And that's when I always say time is the only critic that matters. You can't listen to the critics. It's time. That's it. Like, you think about what else was nominated for Evil Dead. Like, none of us are here for Gandhi. You know, like, wow, there's a convention. Let's all cosplay A Passage to India. I mean, that's David. Like, these are like considered of their time. They were considered masterpieces, and now it's like half the people are like, what are you talking about? Evil Dead. Everybody knows. We know every line from you. You're seeing Ted Raimi there because it's Evil Dead. Like, that's what matters. It's time is the only critic. So Quentin was the one who convinced me to just go for it, and then amazingly, Screen Gems came on and did it. But like, they saw the dailies, and someone at Sony was like, we can't release this because people will stop buying Sony electronics. And they're like, let's call Lionsgate, because they did really well with Saw, because Cabin Fever did well, so that then Lionsgate picked up Saw, and they're like, maybe there is something to R-rated gory horror. And then, they released, and it was Tim Palin, who was the marketing director, who really did a masterful job with those movies. We put them out, and that was it. But at the time, people were running and vomiting from the theaters. People were totally shocked. Everyone's like, we've gone to hell in a handbasket. I was like on Fox News, like, what have you done to the country? It was amazing. It was like, I suddenly became an answer in the New York Times crossword puzzle, but also synonymous with like, how dare you? And then in Hostel 2, the Heather Matarazzo bloodbath, people were just like, fuck, like, we're going to tear them down. So I was just like, it was good, but I just got exhausted after making those two movies back to back was like some of the greatest experiences of my life. But I underestimated, like, it's just hard to just listen to people screaming for 3 years. It was just like, okay, I need a little break, let my ears recover, and like build up the hunger again. So that's why I took a break before Green Inferno.
Yeah, you did take a break from the spotlight, but you never really stopped working. And this is when we started seeing Eli Roth Presents, something that's put together by Eli Roth. Was that an effort to rejuvenate your spirits, or just to kind of give the spotlight to up-and-coming talent?
Yeah, well, I always felt really lucky that I was supported by Peter Jackson, Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, and David Lynch. I mean, these are like the gods of cinema, and all of them supported me in different ways. So I always wanted to be in the position to do that with other filmmakers, and that's why when John Watts made a fake trailer called Clown, that's parodying Hostel, I tracked him down and I called him like, do you want to turn this into a real movie? He had never made a movie before. He's doing commercials and music videos, and he goes, well, thank you for not suing me. I'm like, well, you haven't made the movie yet. Let's wait until we make a film. We can spend the rest of our lives suing each other. There's no point in suing you now. You don't have any money. Like, let's fucking make money, then we can sue. And now, obviously, Spider-Man, John has done extremely well. So, and there's also, when we made Last Exorcism, giving Ashley Bell that break, but like, it was fun to find Daniel Stamm and new filmmakers. That's why I started Crypt TV, to do a bunch of digital shorts, and Gigi Saul Guerrero, and so many films. And, I saw the Soska sisters movie, Dead Hooker in a Trunk, which they made for $2,000, and gave them quotes and gave them notes on editing. So for me, it's like, I love it, because I also recognize I wanted to be like that filmmaker that gave me the break, because I see a lot of myself in them. And now when you're like even kind of 20 years beyond, you're the elder statesman, it's still seeing a whole new generation. I love producing. Like RZA came to me, he's like, yeah, I got this Kung Fu idea. So I spent a year with him working on the script for Man with the Iron Fist. I worked with John and Chris Ford for a year on the script for Clown. And then Bob Weinstein's like, no one wants to see a clown eating children. No one wants to see a killer clown movie. I was like, I don't know what to tell you, dude. We made that in 2012, and he didn't release it for 2 or 3 years, and then put it on video, and it did great. Now we want to do a sequel. And I was like, I told you the clown thing works. Like, John made a great movie. Yeah, but they get afraid to release them. Damien Chazelle wrote the sequel to Last Exorcism. Probably could have come up with. I wanted to call it The Devil Within. That title got taken. Last Exorcism 2, probably not the best title. Maybe should have. Damien wrote a great script, but Julia Garner's in it, and Damien used that money that we paid him to make the short film, of his what's called Whiplash, that became Whiplash. So it's like in La La Land. So it's fun, and Dave Bautista was like a wrestler. People didn't want to cast him. We put him in Man with the Iron Fist. James Gunn sees that and puts him in Guardians. So it is fun. Ana de Armas speaks no English, and we put her in Knock Knock, and then it becomes Ana de Armas. So it's fun. Lorenza Izzo is doing El Gato now. So it's really fun when you can find. I like kind of being a talent spotter where you go, oh fuck, this person's great. And that's why Thanksgiving was a joy, because all the cast that you saw here, I think we'll see. You're not in control, but I think all of them can go on to have amazing careers. But also now I'm in the position where talent want to work with me, where you suddenly have like Cate Blanchett and Jack Black and Jamie Lee Curtis and all these people, and Patrick Dempsey reached out to me to be in Thanksgiving. It was awesome. So Paul Giamatti, it's like I feel like I'm in a zone now where I stuck to my guns, and at the time people were like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why would you make a cannibal movie? But now people are like, how the hell did you do that? And I'm like, yeah, it was pretty cool. It's like 10 years, it's like hitting the 10-year mark. Critic time, again, time being the only critic that matters. It is nice, and it's great that these shows, the horror con scene has really exploded. I wasn't even, I sort of knew about it, but I wasn't really aware until I started doing the conventions just this year. And I'm like, man, this is amazing. This is like used to be just the Fangoria convention, only in New York City, once a year for one weekend. If you were there, that was it. But otherwise, this didn't exist. So the fact that everyone can connect on social media, that they can all come and kind of find your people, and that you can be here talking to the fans and meet other filmmakers. And there's Greg Nicotero and Tom Savini. So many people come up to me and like, I want to be a makeup effects artist. I'm like, well, go talk to Tom, because he's got a school, and talk to Greg, because these are the two best of the best, and they're nice and they're happy to talk. So it's an amazing moment in horror. I feel like we are in the age of fandom, and it does feel like in what Damien and his gang have done with Terrifier is so incredible, because remember the first Terrifier was like not a big hit. And it took years of that, people watching it on Screenbox and watching it, and then Terrifier 2, everyone's like, holy shit. And then Terrifier 3 just takes over. It's going to make $50 million. That's like, everyone's going, how do we do that? How do we do it? You know how you do it? Audiences can smell a rat, and they know when something's authentic. And I keep telling them, I'm like, the fucking horror fans know, guys. They know when it's pure. Whether it's Pooh, Blood, and Honey, whether it's Terrifier 3, they know when the people making it fucking love it. And they don't give a fuck. And they're making something that they want to see because they love horror movies. And they're not faking it. They're not trafficking in it. And there's nothing wrong with a director that's never made one that comes in and makes a good movie. That happens all the time. But the audiences know when talk to me, they're like, oh, fuck, these guys are great. They're going to make something sick. Like, they love, Ari Aster's got his own opinion. Like, everybody, Jordan Peele, like, Ty West, when the people making these movies have seen fucking everything. And that's why I did History of Horror, was to have a show where you could go back and reevaluate these movies that were really shit on, even by the fans, certainly like the Italian cannibal films, and then find the people. Look, it was after Tobe Hooper died and George Romero died, I was like, fuck, man, we're losing their stories. Because Tobe, you'd sit with him, he'd just tell you these fucking crazy stories about making Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You're like, my God, I gotta get this on. Like, we should do a movie about making Texas Chainsaw. This is insane. And then, he dies. And when they die, the stories go with him. So that was one of the reasons. Also with History of Horror, I want people to go, to watch it. Like, I'm like a sommelier who's like, oh, try this movie. Like, what's Who Can Kill a Child? Like, the whole point of it is to keep the movies alive and to watch them and go, oh, I've never seen that one. And to kind of see it through an interesting lens, go, oh wow, I didn't realize that director was thinking about that when they made that. That's such a cool thing. Like, holy fuck. Like Sleepaway, Kim Petras, the pop star. Like, Kim's like, what movie should I watch? I was like, have you seen, she loves horror. I was like, have you seen Sleepaway Camp? She's like, no. And she goes, oh, and then call me like, thank you. Like, thank you for giving me that movie because I never knew about Sleepaway Camp. And that is the greatest. I cannot believe it. Like, I will tell, like, and you can only get that experience of seeing Sleepaway Camp for the first time once. And that's it. And I was like, don't look up anything, don't read it. Just find Sleepaway Camp 1984 and put it on. And she was like, it's like watching Pieces. I'm like, just don't read anything. Just fucking put it on. And they're like, holy shit. And that's the thing about horror. There's always these lists that, I mean, sure, you see them. The best of the decade, they go back, they're like, watching Hostel again, it's not that scary. It's like, it's never scary the second time. Like, that's the whole thing. It's like, the haunted house is only scariest the first time you go through it. But the second time, it's all those other things, the subtext, the context, the beauty, the artwork, all of those other things that went into making the movie. I always say blood stains your eyes. The first time you watch a horror movie, it's like someone came up with a plant sprayer and went, fuck! Like, and that's the experience you want. Is like, you can't see anything. The image should be so disturbing. The corn holders in the ears are like not even paying attention because the thought was so awful. You're like, what, why did I, now that's in my brain. And that's my job, is to tattoo. Like, I don't have any tattoos. And someone asked me why. And I was like, I think it's because I tattoo images in people's brains. Like, I'm a tattoo artist for just like horrible things and fucked up imagery, and now it's in your mind's eye when you see it. And that's the fun, is coming up with that. I can't even remember what I was talking about, but like coming up with that stuff, doing it, passing it on to the next generation. I mean, like, but again, it's fun to be shocking, and then when people react, you're just like, yeah, what am I don't know what to tell you. Not for everybody. They're like, but your movies get bad reviews. It's bad on Rotten Tomatoes, polarizing. I go, yeah, because you're provoking a very strong reaction. I'm not doing this to be loved. I'm doing this to make a movie that I go, fuck yeah. It's like, there's a little bit of that when you're making a horror movie. Like, and then you see the audience responding to it, and then everyone else that copies it, and then they go, well, horror's dead. And I used to say, because I remember with Cabin Fever, people were like, horror's dead, horror's dead. I was like, no, shitty movies are dead. If you build it, they will come. If you make a great movie, people will come out and see it, because someone's going to be like, dude, there's Paranormal Activity. I remember when I was shooting Inglourious Basterds, someone sent me a DVD of it, and I watched it, and I was like, Quentin, this is the fucking scariest movie. He's like, what? He's like, dude, and I just fucking gave it to him. And the next day, he's like, I couldn't fucking sleep. Oh, fuck, I couldn't fucking sleep. And everyone's like, what are you doing? Brad Pitt's like, what are you talking about? We're like, oh, Paranormal Activity. They're like, what is that? We're like, this fucking thing just played at Sundance. And the tape went around the crew, and people were like, oh, fuck, that movie. And that hadn't happened to me since someone goes, hey, man, my movie just got into Sundance. I'm like, really? He goes, here's a VHS of it. I'm like, it's called The Blair Witch Project. And I put it in my apartment. I was like, and I called them. I go, I think the tape broke. It fucking ends when he's just like staring in the wall. They go, yeah, that's the ending. I go, oh. I was like, oh. And it's so great to know that as an adult, that can happen to you. It's like when you get that feeling, there's nothing like it. And there's always a new way to reinvent the wheel. There's always someone coming along going, step aside. And that's the beauty of it. I always think of it as like, and I was texting, Damien's the sweetest guy. I'm sure you guys have all met him. He's like, and him and David, they're like, they love it. Lauren, they love it. They love it. They love it. And I was like, dude, you just gave like a Reanimator shot to the genre and to the box office. It was like you did it. Like, it's, I mean, Thanksgiving's Thanksgiving, but what you did is remarkable. You did it unrated. That's never happened before, that an unrated movie is going to make 50 million. Theaters wouldn't even take an unrated movie. They wouldn't even with Thanksgiving, they're like, we can't go unrated. No theaters will play it. Well, Damien just proved them wrong. So that's what's great about the genre. And look, I like, it's in my nature. I loved as a kid when I read in Fangoria, oh wow, Tobe Hooper's friends with Steven Spielberg and John Landis, and they know it. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So I like, even me and James Wan, everyone was like trying to be like Saw versus Hostel. I was like, no, we're friends. Like, I love these guys. Like, we all try and like, speak nicely and compliment each, because they're the guys that are scaring me. and girls, and then also for the female directors that I've worked with and tried to give them a break to try and let's get some other voices in. That's what Crypt was so good. It was so fun. I could be like, here's a series, here's a short, let's try and expand it. It was a great way to get people's and then doing the Eli Roth Presents, when there was Roxy Shih, the Crypt director, she goes on to the Haunted Museum, and Kat Hostick does Urban Legend, and then other directors like Justin Harding, who shot episodes of the Haunted Museum. I had Justin shoot my second unit on Thanksgiving, and then Justin did his movie Carved for Hulu, which is coming out, just dropped. So it's really fun to find younger directors, work with them, help give them their break, and then watch them, just do amazing things. Then someone else doing their own thing. It's so good for the health of the genre, and it's fun. And that's like, as a film director, I'm a fan first. So when someone makes an awesome movie, like, I just want to know, like, what's out there. Like, someone's like, you got to see this movie. It's fucking, whether it's, everyone talking about The Substance, or like, Ty, when he's like, dude, I got the first cut of Maxine, come watch it. And when the editor watched, I'm like, it's so good, it's so good. So, it's like, I love it. If someone's like, here's a fucking crazy movie that some lunatic made for $100,000, I'm like, I got to see it. So, it's fun. But I think, look, I couldn't do what I do without you guys going to see the movie. So I owe you guys a debt of thanks. And I love that, look, you brought your kids. Like, people have brought their children to do it. It's one of the nice things that gets, it becomes family viewing.
Yeah,
I think I just answered one question for an hour. I'm sorry, you're probably a lot more. I'm getting the sign that it's time to wrap up.
Yeah,
soon.
I always try to leave room for audience Q&A, but we are out of time. Your handler's giving me a signal, and he's so mean.
I wouldn't say that. He's very nice.
Are you gonna be at your?
He just looks mean. He's a sweetie. Actually, he's a big horror fan.
Are you going to be at your counter for the rest of the?
Yes, for the rest of the day. I know people are. I may sneak out and buy some posters, but I will be there. And also, I have. It's so stupid, but I love sparkly stickers. I can't explain it to you. I designed stickers that look like a 12-year-old girl made them, and they came out of an egg that you got at a vending machine in a bowling alley in 1981. And I did them without anyone's permission. So the only place you can get them is from me before the sticker police get me. But come by and so they're there at the table. I also have like a bunch of kind of my old original things that I've saved over the years. I'm just kind of selling off. And then selfies and photos. I'll be there for the rest of the day. So please just come by and say hi. I'll be around. And thank you so much. And thank you. This was great. What a pleasure. Awesome. Do you need a photo?
I would love a photo.
Let's do it. Yeah, who can take our photo? Of course.
When you get going.